right, let's get this thing rolling here. You are listening to an episode of Transparency and Merit, and that was the worst way to end a song, but it was horrible. You are here with Brian and Joe. I'm Joe. That's Brian. And
that's correct.
We're going to talk a little bit about John Wayne, who recently celebrated, it was the anniversary of his death last month, and we're a little late to it, but what did you want to get into? You know a lot more about John Wayne, even though we've had a lot of shows about him in one way or another.
Well, I had actually started the show because I thought, you know what, I'm out of it, Joe. I actually thought that this was, for whatever reason, I thought this was the month of June 11th. Tomorrow it's actually July 11th. So I have been fasting today. I haven't been eating anything, but I'm constipated. So it's just, something that's hanging on. And, like I said, I decided, well, you know what, since we're going to do a John Wayne show, and we've done John Wayne shows. I think we've done okay, Angela, that's not true. He was not.
I tend to believe Angela most of the time when it comes to John Wayne, and she sounds spot on.
No, she's completely wrong. I don't even know why we're having a conversation. This
was a rumor, though, right?
I mean, dude, everyone has a gay rumor. Okay, she said John Wayne was gay, and everyone has a gay rumor, but no, John Wayne was not gay. No way.
And you know this how? Based on his image?
I don't. You know what? I really don't believe that.
I don't know either. I've only heard the rumor. So, but John Wayne is a legendary man.
She said because your friend knew. Listen.
Oh, you got insider info on John Wayne's. Okay.
Yeah, that's all. That's still hearsay. His dad was a famous
hearsay.
It's still hearsay. That's all hearsay information. And I want to talk more about what we did know of him.
There is a little-known John Wayne film called "I've Stolen the Rainbow and I Won't Give It Back." I don't know if you ever saw that one. Anyways, go on.
Well, we do have Politically Awesome, the person that claims that John Wayne was gay.
We do have.
I need to.
Angela in here.
There, I think I fixed it. Isn't her echo?
You are perfect, by the way. I can hear you perfectly, Angela.
Okay, good. John Wayne was gay. Spot on.
Where do you come up with this stuff? How do you know he was gay just because a friend told you?
Okay. Remember I used to talk about my California boyfriend? Well, his dad was a famous cowboy, and he knew John Wayne. And he would tell me these stories about John Wayne. He also told me stories about Ronald Reagan couldn't hold his liquor because he used to hold his hair back if he got too drunk, which was usually on a Friday. And he would vomit. And my ex-boyfriend, would hold his hair back. He even did the land deal for the Reagan Library. So he was well connected with people that were cowboyish, I guess you could say.
Well,
my friend's in real estate.
Well, let's put it this way. We have done a show with an author named Scott Iman, and he gave us a whole lot of really great history and detail about John Wayne. This conversation may have even arisen then that there were rumors, but like Brian says, everybody in Hollywood gets that rumor.
Yeah, that John Wayne was gay. You know what? And I don't think that just because someone says, people will say things to shock you, and you go, "Oh, I know a little secret about." I mean, you know what? I mean, it could be true, but you know what?
Oh, I believe it 100% because my friend is really out there in the sex world. No one would ever suspect him of being this way. He knew John Wayne when he was young, about 18 to 20.
Well,
No joke.
yeah. Well, okay. So I'm not gonna. I mean, just because your friend says that he knew the sex world and he thought John Wayne was gay, I'm not. You know
He
that whole.
personally, intimately knew him. And I probably shouldn't talk about that, but it was real.
Uh, Jesus. Okay, this is this is going in territory where
These are
Well,
my opinions alone, not affiliated with transparency and merit. I'm not saying any of this to slam John Wayne or his descendants. Concluded.
all right. Yeah, that's fine. But there are plenty of people that are going to be offended. I mean, particularly on the conservative side. But yeah, that's like I said, just because someone says it and someone swears by it, all of that is still hearsay and not substantiated. There are things that we know about John Wayne uh, that he was a very controversial figure, and John Scott Imus had written like the thing that there was a myth surrounding him, and then there was a reality. I'm not going to go into all of that because I don't want to, I didn't take the time to research it, but we did a whole and this was on our inflammatory talk page. We did a whole thing about John Wayne with Scott Imus, and we might post that up on our Transparency and Merit website. And it is an interesting look at who John Wayne was.
What do you like most about John Wayne, Brian?
He was entertaining. He was an entertaining actor. And the thing of it is, the left right now at this moment likes to villainize him, and the right, a lot of them like to idolize him. And to me, primarily what he was a very entertaining actor who had opinion, who was very outspoken about his opinions. And today he would be canceled, particularly after the Playboy interview, the 1971 Playboy interview, in which he said, I don't know if the quote was completely right, but he did say, "I'm a white supremacist, so long as until blacks can educate themselves to the point of responsibility." And blacks at that time had become heavily democratic, and some of them, some of the Black Panthers and stuff, they were influenced by Marxist and communist. And John Wayne was against that, and he thought, well, they were just naive. A lot of them were naive and ignorant, and he did not agree with that behavior. So I guess to him, that was, he wouldn't want to live under, black rule because he believed that they would, they were influenced by Marxism and communism. And there's something more deep into that I could go into. I'm not going to go into all of that now, but the civil rights movement had a Marxist and communistic influence to it. And,
Black power.
Well, Black Power has Marxist roots, and I said
yes,
that.
Yes, it does.
And I said that earlier, and and there are some Afrocentric roots to it. I mean, there are all kinds of things kind of mixed into it. And I'm gonna do. I think I'll write something about Muhammad Ali and John Wayne. I'm not gonna go into both now, but I mean that much now. But both of them did not join the. We're not in the military. Both of them said things in the past that were rather inflammatory. And like I said, right now, at this moment, it is
We
John.
need to do some housekeeping. Right now, at this moment, we need to do some housekeeping. JP, can you go share the show? And while the people are listening to a little bit of inflammatory talk, go ahead and click the like and the subscribe button. It will help them out so much. I'm not part of Transparency and Merit, but I am a fan. So please, if you don't mind, hit that like button and click the subscribe. Concluded.
I'm gonna also share this show as well. I'm just gonna.
I will too.
Put this out there on my text and out there, and just I'm gonna also share this show as well. I'm just gonna. Oh. Okay. And I'm gonna share this on my Twitter page.
There we are on Discord. All you Discord people should be here, obviously. Angela is here. You should be too.
Well, I'm here because I clicked the notification button. I rang the bell. So that's how I get notified of the shows. And I really appreciate that feature of YouTube.
Let's face it, you are our longest running fan on Earth.
Absolutely.
Since 2011, I've been here pestering you.
You are on the front lines.
On the front lines. And, like I said, to me, I mean, my father was a film fan. And my father was a bigger John Ford fan, the director John Ford, than he was a John Wayne fan. But John Ford made significant films with John Wayne. And actually, I think one of the reasons why John Wayne became the star that he became was because he knew John Ford, and John Ford put him in his first major motion picture. I mean, before that, he was stuck to doing really grade Z type of westerns. I mean, he started off with The Big Trail. Problem, I think, with The Big Trail, I think it was shot in 70 millimeter, and the Depression just hit, so they didn't have any movie theaters for that. And then, for whatever reason, I think he pissed somebody off, but he was set to really grade Z westerns, but he really learned his craft and learned he learned to be John Wayne with all of those grade Z movies that he made. Most of them were westerns.
And I understand your dad's point of view there, but it's very, very indicative of so much of what happened to that generation of who are fans of, and there's quite a few. But when America thinks of the Wild West, there is a perception, and the movies that were made back then were a good example of a false history conjured into reality on film. And there were well-known directors from that period who engaged in propaganda. And I'm glad that we get a chance to talk about this over over the span of several years, because as I learn more and more about the constructs and the impacts that Hollywood has made in the world, it's I look at guys like John Ford and I say, wow, he really I think he really did a number on quite a bit of people. You may disagree, but it's just my opinion. And I'll mute myself. You're probably muted.
Yeah, I was muted because I was actually continuing to put this on a couple of my Twitter pages. But John Wayne was who he was. And, of course, films, books, and other things are not, are not necessarily real life. And I mean, the legends of the West started with the dime novels and the novelizations of the West, and then that translated to the cinema. And really, the cinema put out a myth there. And the thing of it is, we are really kind of continuing with our myths now. Now that the left controls the media, we are the left is making heroes out of groups and out of individuals who perhaps aren't as clean cut and aren't as heroic as we think. And again, these are human beings. These are people, and they're not necessarily people to be worshipped. And we haven't gotten beyond the hero worship stage. And I think that maybe as we mature, we should stop hero worshiping and get down to the real human being. America is a nation of laws, not of men. And I think we do too much of that, whether it be George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, any of those people. These were men. They were men with flaws, and not all of their ideas were palatable. And that's just it's just human beings. And again, I think we tend to just make either we make them out to be villains, or we make them out to be these greater than life heroes. And you know what? They're human beings. I think that John Wayne was one of the most enjoyable actors I ever saw on the screen. And there are a lot of people out there. They saw John Wayne. They enjoyed it. And they came home after a hard days of work. And back in those days, a lot more Americans worked really hard jobs for limited pay. Poverty in the 1940s and 50s was far worse than today, and you had far less, safety nets, and you had to make it on your own. And life was a lot more harsh. And people wanted to see things that were bigger than life, and John Wayne was just that. He was someone just bigger than life, and.
But I tend to agree with that, a lot of that. Surprisingly, I have a theory. I've had it for a long time, and it was a dream I had of at one point. And I kind of had this dream where there were no acting legends, and that everybody had one shot to make a movie. And I wonder, because I think a million different really good actors probably could have played some of those roles. And it's kind of like how I feel about rock and roll and music, and that's we get programmed to hear the top 30 albums over and over and over again. At least that's how radio had been, especially back then and up until now, where you could play whatever you want. But I think there's a certain level of programming, and the best music you may never hear, because those are a lot of those bands will never get signed to labels for whatever reason, or they have some sort of integrity to their music that couldn't be employable. So from when I look back, and of course hindsight's 2020, and I get the idea of getting to kind of grow up with a guy like John Wayne. I just feel that it improperly puts somebody like him on a pedestal, and only I can only say this in retro. In 2020's, hindsight's 2020 kind of thing. But yeah, that's just how I feel. I feel like it's called kind of a put up in a way, and a guy like John Wayne, for what it's worth, is completely scripted on screen and off screen. I truly believe that is the way things went, and I don't feel good about saying things like that, and it's maybe kind of going to get me blacklisted from Hollywood. But that's just, I'm joking, but that's just kind of how I feel about the whole John Wayne thing. I kind of get it, and yeah, sure. It led to some really outspoken, highly controversial conversations, like the Playboy interview, and I'm sure there were several others that were very highly controversial interviews with John Wayne that you might not get were he not that level of superstar. But do we need that? Does society need a guy like him to act out all these roles and then have such strong opinions that do in fact sway a lot of people one way or another? Do we need that as a society? I argue we don't, and that's why interviews like this, like the ones that used to happen, like the Playboy interview with John Wayne, which is epic, and I think we have a video about it. It's why you don't see those anymore. It's because I think maybe not all people, but the right people probably stood up and said, "Hey, what is this doing? How is this helping us?" Just a thought. Again, I may not be the quarterback for the team, but looking back, I could have won a few games, knowing what I know now.
My thing is, you know what? Did we need it or did we not need it? It happened. It's like, John Wayne is a major part of history, and whether it was needed or not, it was something that happened. People, like I said, people went to his movies. Hardworking Americans went to his movies, and they saw somebody that was bigger than life, somebody perhaps who they wanted to emulate. He represented a country, like, something that people could be proud in. To be proud of their country. They would see things about the cavalry and the nobility. So in some ways he was harsh, but he was this hardworking, noble person that that a lot of people knew and that a lot of people could kind of relate to. There were people like John Wayne out there who were harsh, and it wasn't all fiction. There were people like John Wayne who acted that way, and sometimes he would play kind of close to the villain, but that's who he was. And I was born when he was already a legend and ready to be passing. One of the first films I saw was a John Wayne movie, Rooster Cogburn. I think I saw that my parents took me to a double bill of Rooster Cogburn and True Grit. But yeah, and I always enjoyed watching him.
One thing I find of particular interest when I think of John Wayne is that he was born in 1907, came of age during one of the most critical, maybe even became he was a young man at this point, at a very critical point in America, in the United States history. I usually use like 1933 as a major marker for American history. And, he lived a long time from 1933. He still lived, what is that, another 46 years or so. So he was about, almost midlife. And so I think by the time he was giving these real highly controversial interviews, and he's, now he's gone through the 1960s with more of an old world perspective. I mean, he must have had some really interesting thoughts on where America was heading, and I wonder if there are unknown or unearth John Wayne audio interviews or video, interviews of any kind that may have never surfaced due to their kind of understanding. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but for somebody that tuned in, and that much a part of America as he was, such a huge star and influence and hero in the country, man. I just that sometimes I wish guys like that were still alive. What a tale that they would be able to tell. Just a thought. That's about as sentimental as I'm going to get today. Are you muted?
My father had known two people that knew John Wayne. One was Scott Iman. The other was, I believe his name was David Kovar. And also he knew Sid Cronenthal. But he would just basically, these people would say, John Wayne came, he came from extreme poverty, and he wasn't a person who had empathy too much for other people. I mean, like for certain causes, he's, you're belly aching and you're whining, get to work and shut up kind of thing. It's like, if you complain too much, and this was really kind of the theory among a lot of older Americans, like, hey, quit your complaining. You don't complain. You shut up and you work. Just do. And our culture is not about that anymore as much. And that's a part that we've kind of lost. And we seem to have lost a bit of nuance in things. Human beings, like I said, they're more complex than the hero or the villain. They're human beings. And all I know of John Wayne is that, he was a conservative, and some of the views I agreed with and other views I did not. But I found him to be, like I said, a very entertaining actor. And both my father and my grandparents liked John Wayne. Now, Mandy has now repeated what Angela has said. Now we're gonna. I guess we can. Let me see here. Let me see. I will invite Mandy to. Yeah, Mandy, do you have proof that John Wayne was that way? And you're the second person to say that. I don't agree with that.
We now have proof. Mandy says so. Poof. That's my comment to her. Scott, or High Ridge Estates, which sounds so bougie and wonderful. I wish I lived in the High Ridge Estates. Hello, welcome to the show.
I wonder if High Ridge Estates is a kind of a rich kid kind of guy, and now he has all these other.
I wonder, and I also wonder, I don't think so. I wonder if he knows the best pizza places, at least. At very least, he's in New York. So, Piff. Where's the evidence? We don't see it. Now, you know what, Brian? And would never be disrespectful to a guy like Scott Iman. I think he's great. I really enjoyed the information that he brought and would love to hear it again. But I don't think I'd be a fly on the wall if we had another interview with him. I think I would ask him some of these more difficult questions because simply because Scott Iman, he brings a certain level of, he wants he's all about the mystique, and I
disagree.
And no, I understand. It's and he may get I don't want to offend him. I would just want to ask him some of these, not about, I don't care about his sexuality. That's ridiculous. But I would wonder how he'd feel about my notion that he was scripted on and off set, and there was no off time for well, like I don't believe we know the real John Wayne, but his public perception is highly defined, and guys like John, and I'd also like to know about John Ford too, and about my thoughts with John Ford and the propaganda. I don't think he'd disagree. I think he would. I think it might lead. It might be a more interesting conversation than just kind of waxing nostalgic on these guys, because yeah, we get it. Okay, we get it. But what are now we have this is the only time in history, man, we now have sort of a long-term outcome from what happened, what the propaganda did. And now that those people that were of age during, that basically, your dad's age, our parents' age, who are mostly passing or, very elderly now. I don't know what age group you want to call that, but baby busters, maybe. I don't know. I just have tough questions about that. I have to kind of consider it a little bit more, but I'm looking basically because of the type of career I've had, where I look at more kind of like long-term effects and impacts on things. That to me is a real tough one. And I think it had a heavy, intoxicating influence on that generation, for better or for worse. And I think I'd like to ask Scott Eyman about these things.
Well, there definitely was a cultural impact, but I want to say about Scott Eyman. Scott Eyman's book was a book that broke a lot of myths about John Wayne. And actually, John Wayne was a person who took calculus in college. He was a rather well thought and rather intelligent man. He was not adult, and his thought processes, right or wrong, were rather well thought out. Again, I mean,
well thought out or well scripted?
Perhaps both. Both. He had his own ideas about things and how things should be done. But
as an actor, a professional actor, what he does is act. That's what he's known for. So what is saying that what he portrayed off camera was not an act? I don't know why you're blind to that. Are you that nostalgic to want to believe that the way he was off camera, even though, albeit maybe different from his characters on set, what if that was just a ruse?
I've heard, but Scott, the first thing that I said about Scott Eyman is, how was he different on camera than he was off? And he was a much more subtle type of person, because he was a large 6'4", a very large man and very imposing. And he was a rather, much more soft-spoken, kind of easygoing kind of guy. Although there are directors who would disagree, who had a hard time with, but he certainly had a persona that he wanted to protect, and he thought the persona that he was projecting was good, was good for the nation, and perhaps even good for the world. He thought, America was this beacon of freedom. He had a kind of a Ronald Reagan sense of America, that we are the bright and shining light to the world. John Wayne was a world-traveled person, and he believed in the fight against communism. So, of course, he was in favor of the war in Korea, and he thought we should win the war in Vietnam. And
but it's been claimed that he's acted in movies created by directors who are known to make propaganda films.
All films, just about all films, are propaganda in some way or another.
Okay.
And they're all trying to a degree to convey some kind of message.
They were writing history. They were creating the Wild West was not the way it was described in film. is what I'm saying.
To a large extent, you're correct. And now it goes the other way. Leftists also rewrite history as well. I mean, there is a rewriting of history from both the right and the left, I believe.
Okay, so, but you're okay. What I'm getting at is, what are the long-term effects? What are the outcomes of that? Of now, people, they were viewing propaganda, had no idea it was propaganda, and accepted a lot of that history, accepted a lot of the roles that were created in these movies, and and communities, neighborhoods, communities, vast swaths of communities were impacted by the way by the way these movies, portrayed certain events and customs and social programming sort of thing. So again, it's just, to me, it seems like running away, not running away, but kind of dodging a bullet by not being able to look at it that way. Like perhaps, this pedestal.
Well, again,
if there is, I don't.
hold on. There are two camps here. One of the camps who put John Wayne on a pedestal, and another thinking the devil. There was also a rebellion of the people who thought, hey, man, I'm being lied to. Vietnam, we're killing kids. America is a systemically racist place, and this and that. And there's something far more nuanced, and it's beyond the emotion that we look at it. And like I said, people are not the worst things that they've said or done. They're more than that. They're not, again, they're not, they're not God on high, but they're not the devil either. There's something in between. And I put them as above human and an above entertainer, because that's what actors are. They're entertainers. And a lot of times when people see movies with actors and they like actors, they're basically playing themselves. Even Marlon Brando played Marlon Brando. He interpreted things differently, but he was always Marlon Brando. John Wayne was always John Wayne, and John Wayne knew how to be John Wayne. What were his influences? Who did he influence himself after? And there was a sense of reality and earthiness to him that people kind of knew. You saw guys like him in the bar who'd be gregarious and this and that. There were, some people have had bosses like John Wayne, the guy who, smoked 4 packs a day. I knew a guy kind of like John Wayne at one of the bus yards that I worked at, and he would, he'd either have a coffee and cigarette in his hand, or he'd be under some sort of machine. I don't know if you've known the character or not, but I mean, John Wayne was just a hard, he spoke to hardworking Americans who, in my opinion, made this country the greatest country. I mean, giving us the greatest standard of living of any other nation, and makes this a country where countless amounts of people want to immigrate to. And he celebrated those people. Was he perfect? No. But nobody's perfect. Nobody's a god. And we should, in my opinion, I wish personally we had no holidays celebrating human beings, because we are a nation of men. We are a nation of laws, not of men. And he really did celebrate, the greatness of America, even the myth of America, but he celebrated it. And a lot of Americans bought into it. And even after Americans didn't buy into it, because my father never bought into it, he still loved John Wayne. He still loved John Ford for who they were, the cinematography, some of the moments that they had in those films. John Ford was one of the directors who basically, he told stories in pictures without words. And there's there are, certain scenes in Stagecoach and in The Searchers where you could just, just the scenery alone was just really magnificent. Whether it be like some of the opening scenes and the scenes in She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, just, magnificent storytelling that just, kind of kept your interest. And I remember the movie the movie Red River, which actually made John Wayne, the number one star. Just like I said, he was a person that represented this country, and of course, he never served in the military, but many military people at that time loved John Wayne. The armed forces loved John Wayne, and when soldiers were coming back from Vietnam and being disrespected, a lot of those soldiers loved John Wayne. I mean, my father, now he didn't serve in Vietnam, but he chose not, when he came back here to the United States, he chose not to keep his uniform. And that was kind of unusual. But he said, yeah, soldiers were treated like garbage when they came back. The soldiers during that time, the U.S. servicemen were treated a lot like the police are today. And it's kind of disgraceful, in my opinion, because, we need soldiers, we need police officers, we need some forms of law and order in this country. And, there needs to be a balance between freedom and law and order. And that's not being done today. Certainly, we're seeing where the mob is taking over, and it's kind of sad. And I'm saddened on how people are putting up people as heroes and then putting people as villains. People are not that way, and I wish we got to a more rational discussion on this. Do you have anything to add? Because I think I've said all of my pieces on that, Joe. Do you have anything to add before we end this puppy?
Well, I did have the phone lines open in case maybe somebody would like to call in. I mean, he is a polarizing kind of character, and I would like somebody to call in and really get into it on either side, either in full love and support of John Wayne or vice versa.
I love and support. You know what? I'll tell you this. This may be, but I love and support John Wayne for who he was, for the entertainer that he was. I may not have agreed with everything that he did, but he was a complex, intelligent human being who made films that I enjoy, that are still considered classics. And I think he was a good man for the most part. Maybe not the best husband, but he was a good father to his kids. All of his kids loved and adored him, and the people who knew him loved and adored him. And people thinking that he was a racist. I remember one story. Someone told me that there was a black man who was helping him out, like in the yachting club, and the kid came late. The guy said, "You're late. Look at your watch." And he says, "I don't have one." John Wayne took off his watch and gave that young black man his watch, and that guy still kept it, I believe, till this day. But like I said, there are lots of stories of John Wayne doing good and noble things for people, helping them out financially.
There are a lot of movies that include a storyline that involves a watch and its possession. That would be something to look into. There is huge meaning to that story, just like when baby Jessica fell down the well.
That being said, Joe, is there anything else to add before we call this show a day?
The world is but a stage, but John Wayne was one of the greats, no doubt.
Well, we can both agree on that. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and also visit our website. We'll be going into more further detail. We've bought a little bit of equipment, some software and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
Some details that are going to go further into this. Thank you for listening, and like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you wish.
And go to transparencyandmerit.com.
Thank you. Yeah.